Build shows on the road today, coming to you from Superior, Colorado, where if you remember the news, 2 years ago this December, they had the Marshall fires, this beautiful grassland behind me here in between Superior and Boulder. Caught fire on a day where we had 100-mile-an-hour winds, and this whole neighborhood that I'm in here lost over 1,000 houses in 6 hours. Can you believe that? So we're going to be checking out a rebuild happening today with a builder that is doing a really good job on fire resistance, but also is taking this house to the next level. He's going to the passive house standard. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening on this build. Lots to dig into. This is going to be a long episode, guys. Hang on. Today's build show all about wildfire resistance and rebuilding to a higher standard. Let's get going. All right, guys, so here's what we got. Joe Bear Construction. We're about to meet Chuck Bauer, and we are rebuilding this gorgeous house right here to a very high standard. There's Chuck right there. Hey, Chuck.
Matt, how are you?
Man, I'm good.
Welcome to Colorado.
Thank you for having me, man. What a beautiful day. A little windy, but sunny and nice here at the mountains today.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you got going on here? I'm noticing already, just from the outside of this house, that you've got some fire resistance happening here.
So this is our Restore Passive house, and it was created after the fires, after the Marshall fire, to be more fire resilient, better insulated, air tightness. I mean, all of the boxes.
All the things
we've tried to check on this house. So it's also going to meet the WUI standards.
Okay, so wildfire urban interface.
Correct. And so everything on the outside of the house is non-combustible, whether it's the siding, the cladding, the decking in the front, in the back, everything.
So nothing that's wood that would burn, in other words, right? So fiber cement siding, rock wool insulation that has natural fire resistance, some concrete and steel, nothing that would catch an ember and light up. What about the roof?
Steel garage door. The roof is going to be a metal roof, actually a 24 gauge Sheffield metal roof, standing seam.
Fantastic.
And
that's what I did in my house too.
Yeah, exactly the same product with the ribs in the middle. It's really going to be a bulletproof house. I mean, we've tried to incorporate everything to increase the durability.
So let's walk the house a little bit on the outside, and then we'll go in and see, because I think you're at a perfect stage to see it. But talk me through some of the details on the outside. Like, you've got, well, this is garage, so we don't have insulation here, right? But like on the other side that I'm looking at here, where you've got house, you've got fiber cement siding, fiber cement trim. Anything special about the windows when you're talking about fire resistance?
Yeah, actually there is. We've actually brought the jambs onto the window frame themselves for a couple reasons. The main reason is to allow for the rock wool to go onto the window jamb and increase the thermal effectiveness of that unit.
Okay.
So that's a neat feature on that.
And then are these windows tempered too in fire areas?
Every window in the house is tempered. It's triple paned and tempered. And so that ideally is supposed to withstand a fire better than a non-tempered glazing package.
And am I seeing a little bit of rock wool insulation showing at the foundation line as well there?
You do. That entire foundation has 1.5 inches of rock wool Comfort 80 board on it.
Oh, wow.
And so that goes all the way down to the footer. The footer is actually wrapped with the 1.5 inch rock wool as well.
Oh, dang. And then as I go up the house, I'm seeing is this James Hardie's fiber cement? Is that what we're looking at? Yeah, no wood there. And then I've not seen this before. This is interesting, Chuck. Is this some kind of aluminum or metal corner board that I'm seeing?
This is called Easy Trim. That's the company. It's a local manufacturer out of Broomfield, Colorado. And they make some really neat profiles for exterior siding. And so we've incorporated that. The style of the house is a very sleek, minimal type of detail on the outside, and this works perfect for that.
That's awesome. And how do you keep embers, like the prairie lands behind us here, if the wind's blowing, isn't there some concern with rain screen, with that air gap behind, that you could get embers up behind your siding or at the metal roof line? What precautions do you take there?
So we'll see this mesh that we're using. It's a fire resistant mesh, and we'll see it on the mock-up a little bit later. But that will prevent the embers from going up into that rain screen.
Got it.
And that ventilation behind the cladding.
Okay.
And so that's an important part of this assembly on the outside.
That makes sense. And then talk to me about, I think you mentioned earlier there's a front deck. Are you doing, I'm assuming you're not doing wood on the back of the house here, are you? What are you doing to prevent fire back here?
Again, everything on the outside of the house is non-combustible. What you see here is the steel structure that a steel decking or a steel framing will go over the top of. We're going to use the Fortress system.
Okay, I've done that before.
And that will overlay this. On top of the Fortress will be an aluminum, kind of a powder coated deck board. And so that really performs well in the elements, and of course is fire resistant.
Well, you had to really think about it, didn't you?
Every bit of this, we've really had to think about passive house, fire resiliency, and the main thing on these is, a reasonable budget. We can build anything you want to, and often have, but to get the cost down for these victims of this fire was paramount.
Yeah, for sure.
To this project.
And Chuck, did I notice that there's a foundation next door? Was that from the house that burned down left?
It was. There were two foundations in the neighborhood that were left in place with the hope of reusing. The corner house didn't have as much heat around it as the lots on the interior, and so the owners have wanted to try to salvage that foundation. And so a few months ago, they came to us and said, Chuck, we're struggling getting this thing off the ground. What's your workload? Would you be interested in possibly looking at this? And since then, we finalized their plans. We're in for permitting.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we're going to be starting their house probably within a month.
Fantastic.
So
fantastic. Chuck, I invited the Ready Frame guys to join us, and their head guy Terry's inside, and I wanted to get a look at the inside. Could we go check out the inside?
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you in there.
Okay.
All right, Chuck, let's go check out the inside. Ah, the perfect stage for me to come, Chuck. I like it. This is a great time. We've got mechanicals, but no insulation, and we got my buddy Terry here.
Matt, how are you?
Terry, how you doing, buddy?
Really well.
Guys, we've seen Terry before. He's the VP of Ready Frame Solutions at Builders First Source, and I'm guessing you and Chuck worked together on a little Ready Frame action here, huh, Chuck?
That's correct. We wanted to do some advanced framing for the house. As you can see, we're 24 on center for our wall studs. They're lining up right underneath the floor trusses.
And those are not, is that a 2x8 I'm seeing? That's not even a 2x6, is it?
2x8s.
Oh, look at you, man. 2x8s on 24 centers, lined up perfectly. That is fantastic. And Terry, I guess I've never seen a Ready Frame house with 2x8 construction before. That's no big deal for y'all though, is it?
No, it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of what the specification is for the house and what the requirements are. We can go from 2x4, 2x6, 2x8. We'll take it to 2x10 if you want to.
Wow.
And, obviously with this being an exterior wall, you have some of the markings up above here with Ready Frame that are shown.
Yep.
But being an exterior wall, this wall is typically laid down. You have all the markings that are up, and then you cover it up with sheeting before it stood up. So you don't see a lot of the markings on the exterior walls.
Yeah, and these studs, if you remember my old Ready Frame videos, guys, these basically are pre-cuts that are right off the pile, so there's no Ready Frame markings there. But what seems to be missing here, Chuck? Did you forget to put a header over this window, bud? Was that a? Did I just catch a framing error here from you, Chuck?
I'm not saying that it's not possible, but no, you didn't. We decided, because this model of house was designed to be on different lots, different configurations, different window locations, depending on that configuration. We pushed the headers up to the rim. And we replaced a standard OSB rim board with LVL.
Oh, so your header is right there.
Right.
And then you've got an LVL rim board that's carrying that load across.
That's correct.
So now you've got a fully insulated pocket here with a 2x10, or 2x8, pardon me.
Right. So we're able to get more insulation around the window. The window's going to perform better, and it gives us a flexibility on subsequent houses to move that window down slightly without having to go back to the engineer.
No, that's fantastic. Way to go, my friend. And what's cool, Terry, about ReadyFrame is you're able to model all that so that Chuck can check out conflicts, including, I'm assuming these are BFS trusses, floor trusses, which I use a lot in Texas because of this action right here. Nice open web. Is that an HVAC duct? What am I seeing there, Chuck?
That's from a company called Rio. They've just started to look into the ventilation market. They've been in the HVAC market for traditional duct systems, but we approached them, and this is one of their first ventilation, certainly their first passive house.
Wow.
To be involved with.
I mean, this is one efficient house. If the whole entry here, let me scoop around so these guys can see this. Front doors here, you've got a couple big windows, and that's the only heating and cooling duct into the room. That's a pretty impressive build right there in terms of insulation value, if that's all you needed to heat and cool the space.
Correct.
That's amazing, Chuck. I like it.
And so the installation of these ducts, it was so straightforward and easy that we actually did that in-house.
Is that right? So the HVAC company didn't do it, your guys did it?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
One day, once we got the package, I went and laid out the heads, and my guys came behind me with the tubing.
Way to go, man.
So if I can do it, I think most builders could.
That's really cool. Terry, when you've got a drop ceiling like this in a kitchen space, are you modeling that on ReadyFrame? I mean, this seems like a pretty simple area to frame without having to go to ReadyFrame.
Yeah, the attention is in the detail, right? If it's on the plan and the builder wants it to be ReadyFramed, we can ReadyFrame it.
Okay.
So, it's just a matter of what is specified and to what detail they want to take it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this drop was after the fact. This was done by Stefan and the cabinet designer. So we decided to drop the lid in here. This was after the ReadyFrame was already on site and installed.
Yeah.
So this is one of the few areas in the house that we didn't go through ReadyFrame. So everything else we did, and kudos to builders for source, but we didn't have one error on that package.
Is that right?
Usually there's something that we've got to go back to the
That's fantastic.
to the company for, but everything was dead on.
That's awesome.
And so
Yeah,
it's a
the
testament
attention's
to
in
your.
the detail.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions that are asked up front, and it's a different experience as well than your traditional stick frame, because you typically get your lumber pack delivered, you roll out the plans, the framers show up, they figure out what they're going to do, and they start building a house. Here, you have all this product that arrives that has all been discussed ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's all planned. What goes where and how are we going to put all this together.
Yeah, that 3D model is pretty awesome, isn't it? I'm changing gears here, but am I seeing all LVL studs on this side of the house? What's going on there?
So that was mainly wind load because we have a 2-story wall there, and so our wind loads in this area matter 155.
Is that right? Oh my gosh. So that tall wall right there, you had to throw some LVLs in there to meet that wind load.
Yeah, so that's a big consideration in building in Superior.
Yeah, that's an expensive wall too right there. And 2x8 LVL studs. That was not inexpensive. And I think it's interesting to see, Chuck, that you've also, even with a high wind load area, you've gone with 24-inch on center spacing, which you can do as long as you've thought about it ahead of time, talk to the engineer, and then pre-plan it with the ReadyFrame.
Right. We did upgrade our exterior sheeting to 3/4 true plywood, and because of the 24 on center, we felt that our attachment of the cladding was important in this environment. We just wanted that good hold.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about that.
For our fasteners.
That 3/4 plywood on the outside means wherever you put a screw for that rain screen system, had he had masonry here, he could have put his masonry anchors anywhere on the facade of the building, not worried about hitting studs. That's a really nice upgrade. He spent a little bit more money doing that, but it's certainly added to his strength and his wind load for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Give me a little tour. What's going on back here? So this is kitchen in the center of the house.
Kitchen. This is family room.
Oh, actually, before you go real quick, this is interesting. You know, when you get a 2x8 framed wall and that thickness, look how, even though he's got a big soil stack right here, it fits in that wall cavity no problem. He's still gonna have plenty of insulation in that cavity. That's pretty nice.
We're gonna net and blow all the exterior walls, so it should really pack in around that nicely.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. I like that.
So this is the family room. You can kind of see the views out the back of the Flatirons.
Is that right? Straight out of the back of the building, you can see that? Oh man. See if I can adjust my, yeah, that's awfully pretty. What a great location, man. Incredible.
So yeah, there should be a really neat space.
And boy, with those trusses and those 2x8 bays, you've got a really nice open frame here to get all your mechanicals, your wiring. Your electrician didn't have to drill a thing in the ceiling to put any of his wires on there, and all of your ducting went in, no problem as well, your plumbing pipes. That's pretty awesome. I love floor trusses. I've been using those in Texas for the entire almost 20 years I've been building in Texas, and floor trusses are fantastic.
You'll see downstairs on how we were able to get everything up into the ceiling. Most basements that you go into that are finished, you see softening. With those floor trusses. You know, you can eliminate that.
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
It's a really nice finish.
Man, that's awesome.
So again, we've got all of our flexible ducts servicing the upstairs, going down into the basement where the HRV.
Your loads must be tiny on this building.
It's about 10% of a normal build.
Is that right?
Yep.
90% less BTUs usage here. That's pretty big, isn't it, Terry?
Incredible.
That is incredible.
You can do it if you want to, but you gotta want to get it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we think about 4 kW of solar will get this house to a net zero.
Oh my gosh, that's nothing.
Yeah. Our goal
Holy
was
cow.
to be able to hand the keys over to the clients at the end of the build, and them never to have a utility bill again.
Golly, that's incredible. And did you mention you're blowing in the walls? What are you doing, like blowing cellulose or something in the walls?
On all the exterior walls will be net and blown.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
and then what's the total, and you've got 2 inches of rock wool comfort board. Any idea what the total R value on that wall cavity is?
I think our consultant that's outside will know, but I'm pretty sure it's over 40 on that assembly.
Holy cow.
So, and we can look at the mock-up in the garage and kind of get a feel for that.
I'm looking forward to seeing your roof insulation too a little bit later. Terry, is there any particular spaces of the house that really speak to the Ready frame and its capabilities? Is there something in particular that you want to show us off that really shows that capability?
Yeah, what's really interesting about this house is on the main level you have all pre-cut studs for the most part. On the second floor there's a rake wall that we can go take a look at.
Let's go look at that.
That has been Ready framed, and the really cool part about it is all these parts and pieces are all labeled as Ready frame, and you'll see the how tight that angle is to the header.
Oh, rake wells really show it off, don't they?
Absolutely.
Oh, what a cool upstairs, man. This is awesome.
So you pick up the Ready frame markings right in here,
Okay, yeah. So
and you come around this.
in other words, this bottom plate has that ink jetted marker on there. It's saying, you know, put this 2x4 stud right there. But then this wall right here is what you're talking about, isn't it, Terry?
Turn around and come inside and look at this wall up here. All of these rake studs have all been pre-cut. Look how tight the gap is to the top plate.
That's tight. That's amazing.
And how much time is saved on the job site not having to figure all that out. All of these pieces came to this job site pre-cut already and labeled exactly where they go.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And Chuck, talk to me about this membrane, this white membrane I'm seeing here.
So this is our air barrier up here. This is where the air barrier goes from the exterior to the interior.
Okay.
Right at the top plate, right underneath the trusses. And so behind that, the Intello system is a vapor variable membrane. So depending on the conditions, that the vapor openness will fluctuate and to allow less or more vapor across that. And so what we have to do, because we have 24 inches of blown-in cellulose above this, we've got to put these strapping boards just to hold the sheer weight of the cellulose.
Oh, I see. Okay, so our rafters are running from the top plate to the ridge, and then these are running horizontally on top of the Intello. So now it's going to hold that insulation in,
Correct.
And then also give you a spot to screw in your sheetrock without messing with your membrane.
Exactly. And it creates a service cavity, so we can run our electric up through there.
Yeah, and then you've also got a great attic space up there too, which is fantastic.
Right, that was
Unusual.
We didn't.
Great design.
We knew that we were going to have a little extra space up there. The clients, will show you in the master, have opted to use that as like a secondary walk-in closet.
Oh, killer.
And
also means that now your pull-down stair here doesn't need to be some super insulated, crazy, airtight, whatever. It can be a $900 unit that is just easy to climb, but doesn't matter about insulation or airtightness.
and whatever you store up there is not going to get so hot in the summertime that it's going to compromise it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
All the condition space.
Yeah, impressive. Man, these 2x8s on 24 centers look awesome up here.
They really do. And Matt, notice how quiet it is in here?
Super quiet.
This is a construction job site, and it's so quiet in here right now. There's a lot of construction that's going on outside that we're not hearing any of it at all.
Yeah, that's that airtight construction, Chuck.
Right.
Now, Chuck, I'm noticing that you've got strapped windows. These look like Alpine is the model, which is you're supporting the home team here, Colorado company.
Exactly.
And then you've got straps on the side.
Literally, the Alpen warehouse is a mile from our site.
Oh, is it really? Oh my gosh.
So
That's awesome.
I always tell them I know where to find them. What's wrong with that? But we wanted to support them. They've been a big supporter of the Build Back effort here, and I want to give a shout out to them. A great window, a very economical window in the scheme of things. These are triple pane. All of the glazing on the house, like I mentioned before, is tempered. So again, ideally that should hold up a little bit better in a wildfire condition.
Yeah.
So
Smart. And obviously no venting to the outside whatsoever. This is an unvented roof assembly. Nothing for embers to get in anywhere in this house.
that's right. I'll show you on the mock-up. We've got a vented roof above this, but we've done that in a pretty unique way that I'll show you.
Cool.
And we've got that metal roof going on too. So
Yeah.
all of those factors together made that roof assembly pretty complicated. But I think we've worked through it with the suppliers and the engineers.
Yeah. I really like the 2x8 ready frame on this house. I mean, this is what's smart about the design here too, Chuck, is it's not a crazy complicated house.
No, this is a relatively small house by the standards we look at today when we go into these new homes. But this house is so well built, and by utilizing 2x8 on the exterior walls, that extra amount of insulation, that's even going to make this thing even quieter.
Yeah.
Even quieter. So they did a really nice job, Chuck.
Yeah, it feels really good, Chuck. How about we go check the basement out?
Sure.
I want to see what's happening down there. Oh, Chuck, I'm excited to see this. We got mechanicals. We got basement insulation. Oh man, look at this. We got a little goodies table for me to check out all the cool stuff here. This is awesome. Talk me through it. Where do we start?
So you can see the floor trusses that I talked about upstairs.
Yep.
On how we can get everything up in there. And we
Yeah, nice
really
flat
got a lot
ceiling.
of the ventilation ductwork, the tubes that are up in that space, and it was really an easy install.
Yeah, check out those tubes, man. They just kind of snake everywhere.
It looks a little kind of spaghetti-like. It really works well.
This HVAC system then, this heating and cooling the house, who makes this?
Yeah, Matt, that's a great question. Let me introduce you to our passive house consultant, Andrew Mitchler.
Andrew, hey buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming out with us today, man. So Andrew, tell us about this HVAC system. This is crazy.
So of course, this is a passive house, so ventilation is the main part of it. And we have to have heat exchange. So we're putting a heat ventilation exchange system in here.
HRV.
HRV, and it's a balanced system. So every room needs to get air coming in and coming out. So that's kind of the core thing for the passive house. We have constant circulation of fresh air in the building. It can be filtered too. The big part of with the fire, of course, is we want people to have fresh air, but also filtered air, so it gives us that capacity.
And so you've got one unit that's doing both heating, cooling, and ventilation?
No, not at all. We're using mini splits, good old-fashioned, cheap, affordable, high-performance mini splits. And then the ventilation system is just for fresh air.
Oh, okay. So then these tubes we're seeing here, this is just fresh air tubes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I was confused in the foyer.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's, and what's funny is that the company that we're working with, RIA, they designed these just for HVAC systems.
Okay.
And then when I saw the install, I think they emailed me and I said, hey, have you guys heard of HRVs? They're like, no, what's that? And then we started talking about passive house, and then all of a sudden they got all excited and we're talking to corporate. And so this is their first job at just doing a fresh air system.
Interesting. And is that over here then?
So they're the distributor of the system. And then this is the actual unit. This is the unit with the heat exchanger, and fresh air comes in on one side from the outside, and then comes out the other side is the return air. There's stale air from the bathrooms.
Got it.
From kitchen, stuff like that. And then this is another unit. This is Brink, which is a Dutch unit, and they're kind of the original manufacturers of these units. And these are Passive House certified, which means that we should get about 92% efficiency out of these, compared to a lot of the domestic units. They can be around 50% efficient. So you can see the massive delta. And these things run 24/7. All year long. So this is where most of our energy can be lost if it's not well designed without good equipment. So this will be one of the first installed in the U.S. So for us, this is...
I like your mechanical warranty. You got some plywood on the walls ready to go.
Yeah.
This is your distribution system.
The distribution system, we just stick these on top.
And that's going to distribute it to those ducts right there that kind of plug like a shop vac tube in there.
Yeah. And then what's really neat about the RIA...
Hey, let's walk over here and then we're the lights a little bit. What are we looking at here, Andrew?
So one of the big questions is how to get that fresh air to the different rooms. So this is kind of the European system, which you can run several ducts. Say we need to run, say 30 CFM to a room, then we can just run 2 ducts to this. And then we adjust the amount of air that goes into the room with just a mushroom cap, and then we commission it that way.
Yep.
So that's the conventional system.
So pretty similar to the Zender system that I've got at my house.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
And then you can get units with like filters built in for your kitchen, things like that. So,
gotcha.
And they're pretty sophisticated. They have really slick units that are just magnets.
Cool.
And this is for like a bathroom, so it's non-static, so it stays clean, like that. So there's all sorts of ways to do it. Reed's taking a different approach, and they put the balancer inside the duct. So you just go in here, you grab a tab, and then you can remove it. And what's important is that we need to have a very specific amount of air per room. So this gives us complete controllability. We go past with a hood, and we measure each unit, write it down, and we balance the entire house. And that's part of the certification process for Passive House. So if it's out of balance, it doesn't work. So that's a big concern for them to do these well.
Got it. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, talk to me about your basement insulation. What do you got going on down here, Chuck?
So we have 2 layers of 2-inch polyiso on the walls down here, attached to the foundation.
How'd you attach that? I don't see any fasteners on there. There's some cap fasteners. I do see them.
Yeah, Eddie and the boys came up with a pre-drill and a screw.
Okay, so there's a fastener right there.
Right, so that's a concrete anchor, and they got the method down, and they were off with it. So
that's awesome. And then just a 2x4 frame wall in front of that.
We'll net and blow that as well. So,
okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. You're going to have lots of insulation in this house.
Yeah. We've got 6 inches of EPS foam underneath the slab.
Holy cow.
Vapor barrier.
So underneath our feet, we also have 6 inches before that concrete slab got poured of EPS.
Yeah. It's funny, like, say like 10 years ago, people were putting 12, 16 inches of insulation in different places. And It was almost random, but we're getting better at not over-insulating it, at the same time putting enough in, so it's not like a cold, clammy room while the rest of the house is different. So it's that balance of heat loss through the whole building.
Yeah, that's smart.
Same.
That's smart. Chuck, I would love to go meet your homeowner at some point. I think you mentioned that he might be around. I wonder if you could introduce me to your homeowner. It's Peter, right?
Peter and Michelle Ruprecht.
I would love to hear their story. Let's go meet Peter. Hey Terry, before we leave the basement,
Sure.
What's up with the weird spacing on your framing?
Oh, it's a Colorado thing. So what we have here is we have our bottom plate, and we have a second bottom plate with a space in between because of our soil, bentonite, which tends to move. And so we put a spacer in between the bottom plates and put a spike in between to tie these two together to stabilize it. And then these spacers will come out when
so
they
they don't
insulate
stay.
and drywall. So that will come out. There you go. Chuck will take those out so you can see what it's going to
And then
look
your
like.
basement slab literally could rise and fall and not affect your finishes.
This house could rise and fall probably 3 to 4 inches right here on the bottom.
Holy
you
cow.
probably have some drywall is going to crack.
So do you
before get to
stop
it.
your drywall short and then run a base that's not attached or something?
Right. They'll run the drywall down, put a drywall strip here. They'll use a tall baseboard in the bottom, nail it here so your baseboard can float with the wall as it goes up and down.
Whoa, that's crazy. Does that actually happen, Chuck? Is that a thing?
So you'll have movement a lot of times you won't even be able to tell. So it'll be concealed by the baseboard, but that wall will be able to move behind there.
Oh my
It's a nice
gosh.
little detail we do up here.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that. Wow. Hey Peter, I really appreciate you letting me film your house and get out here and kind of show the world what you're doing. But if I can dig into your memory banks a little bit, I know this really wasn't very long ago this happened. It probably still feels like it was yesterday. Walk me through that December day. What was it, 2 years ago now, right? Coming up on 2 years. When the fire happened, were you home? Were you away? What was kind of the story?
Yeah, so it was right after the holidays, so my wife and my daughter and I were at home. We got up in the morning and it was breezy. It had been very dry during the winter. So around here, winter can still be fire season.
Is that right? I would think that winter would make it damp enough that it wouldn't have fire season then.
It hadn't snowed yet very much that year.
Okay.
And you know, we saw a little smoke coming up over the hill to the west, and
we've got Boulder in between, or your Boulder's kind of this direction, right? And you've got this huge grassland in between you and the city, right?
yeah, so immediately behind our house is a beautiful 4 or 5 mile stretch of preserved open prairie.
It is gorgeous. I threw the drone up, even though it was windy, and was able to see that. So that's where the direction the fire came from, I guess, huh?
Yeah, and so this is something living in this area, you just kind of have in your mind that there can be grass fires back there. But since it was such a windy day, you know, it was gusting up over 100.
Oh my gosh.
At points. We were a little more nervous. So we each packed up an overnight bag, and then all of a sudden it was like a volcano
Is
back
that
there,
right?
just a huge billow of smoke coming up over the hill, and we got in the car and ran.
I bet your heart was sinking. And did you expect that fire to consume that? Like, your house was totally lost, right?
So while a grassland fire wasn't really expected back there, the amount of devastation in the neighborhood was a surprise to me. A few houses caught fire. The neighborhood is very closely packed. It was built with wooden fences, wooden decks, pressboard siding, and it was just really very flammable. And so within the span of about an hour, 170 houses burnt down to the foundation.
Oh my gosh. In 100-mile-an-hour winds to fuel that too, it must have been an inferno around here.
The poor firefighters had no chance. You know, the fire engines came in and they realized that they'd be killed if they stayed. And so fortunately, the emergency services was able to get everybody out of the neighborhood. Nobody in our subdivision directly was killed.
Wow.
Fortunately, which is the biggest miracle.
That is a miracle that everybody
the
got
whole
out.
thing, yeah.
Jeez. And what did you do when you were thinking about rebuilding? I'm fast forwarding here a little bit on the timeline, but I mean, you're building to a really high standard here. You've got extreme fire resistance, and then adding on top of that, you're building to the passive house standard. How much of that came from your builder versus you guys saying, here's what we want?
So Chuck and his team presented this design as a passive house, and we also, on top of that, wanted the wildland urban interface fire resistance codes as well. And fortunately, those fit together really well. When you have a smooth, simple form to the house, that makes it easy to insulate and easy to air seal for the passive house. And it also makes it more fire resistant because there aren't nooks and crannies and things like that for embers to fly into.
That's right. Yeah.
So it really made good sense to us to build to the WUI standard along with the passive house. That they're just very complementary.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I noticed you've wrapped your entire house in rock wool, which is an extremely fire-resistant material. It brings no combustibility to the assembly. Plus, you've got a full fiber cement exterior and a metal roof going on this house. So, you've really taken all the measures to make sure this house is as fireproof as possible, it seems like.
Yeah, and we're also glad that our neighbors are taking similar steps. Because when your houses are so close together, you can do a certain amount with your own house, but you really depend on your neighbors to do the right thing with theirs as well.
Yeah, that's right. And this neighbor to your next door looks like they're doing some serious fire resistance as well.
So glad to have them up in from us.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Tell me about the passive house portion of the project, though. I mean, so few houses in America are built to this degree of durability and efficiency and comfort. What part of that are you most excited about?
Well, I mean, my wife and I are looking at this really from a pretty selfish perspective. I mean, we live in an area which is beautiful, but it does have very strong weather conditions. So having really solid walls that are highly insulated and really well air sealed is going to make a big difference for us in terms of year-round comfort.
That's right.
In our climate. Our old house was kind of the opposite of that. And so while it's great to have the energy efficiency, I certainly am not downplaying that part at all. We're looking at it almost entirely from the perspective of our own comfort.
I like that.
Having filtered air inside and the whole bit.
I totally agree, man. As a side note, in the early 2000s, I kind of called myself a green builder, and I was really interested in building green. And I quickly realized that customers certainly want that, but we have to, as builders, as homeowners, we have to say, okay, where the rubber meets the road, when it's time for me to actually pay for it, I want to make sure that my family's comfortable, that my family's safe, that I'm building a durable house, that I'm building a house that, when I'm here in my dining room, I'm not going to be cold because my double pane windows in your 0-degree days outside are pulling the heat off my body. Your triple glazed windows are going to be so much more comfortable inside this house than your previous house. And I'm noticing all your fresh air ventilation pipes behind me that are always going to be puffing in that filtered fresh air. Rather than worrying, or not worrying, but rather than having those leaks of air coming in everywhere, and that's providing your fresh air. So I love the fact that you said that. I'm building this selfishly. It's cool because you're doing the right thing for the world, for the nation, but you're also taking care of your family. You mentioned you've got a wife and a daughter in the house. I've got 4 kids at my house, and I was certainly excited about energy efficiency and maybe reduced bills, but by far that's not my number one reason for building to this standard.
Yeah, we can't wait to move in. And, another thing that was a really big concern for us was being able to pay for it. Insurance just doesn't cover
for sure
everything when you're rebuilding your house. And so we're just not in a position to pay a ton more money to have all these additional features. And the neat thing is that it's construction techniques that aren't crazy, that aren't really wildly expensive. Yeah, it costs a little bit more than a conventional house. But we're getting a lot of grants and rebates and financial incentives from the state and from our local power company and from the federal government, which helps to make up a fair amount of that difference for us.
That's wonderful.
So It's expensive to rebuild a house, but this house is honestly not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. It's
great.
hardly, with the incentives, it's hardly much more expensive than a conventional house.
That's fantastic. Peter, I travel around a lot. I've seen a lot of houses under construction all over America. And I got to tell you, this is a really well-built house. I mean, you're in the 0.00001% of the best houses built in America in the last 5 years in this house. I'm super impressed. You and Chuck are doing a fabulous job. Your family's going to love this house for many decades to come. And the next family, 50 years from now, is also going to love this house. So thank you for doing what you're doing, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. We can't wait to get going on moving in here.
It's a killer house, Peter. Thanks, brother. Hey, Chuck, walk me through this assembly, would you?
So this is a mock-up of our wall and roof assembly that we've come up with. And this is showing pretty much from the foundation to the roof. This lower board here represents our concrete foundation.
Okay, so this is mocking up. This isn't truly, but that would be concrete.
This would be concrete.
And then you've got rock wool on the outside of the concrete.
1.5 inches of rock wool on the exterior of the foundation.
Yep.
On the inside, we have 2 layers of 2-inch polyiso.
Gotcha.
And then we have our 2x4 frame wall that will net and blow with insulation.
Dang, that's a really well insulated area.
For our first floor sheathing, we've got 1 1/8 OSB.
Okay.
So really thick, solid OSB.
Nice.
2x8 stud wall.
Yep.
For our exterior walls. 3/4 true plywood that we talked about earlier. 2 inches of rock wool. Rain screen. Yep. And hardy siding. Lap siding on the outside.
I like it.
So air will come in at the bottom. We'll have a mesh, a fire-resistant mesh.
You actually have that right here, don't you? A little mock-up or a little sample of that?
So this is the material that we're using, and this will keep the embers from going up into the wall cavity.
Yeah, got it.
And so that's at the bottom.
Chuck, I got to ask you, and I don't, this doesn't concern me, but I wonder if people are concerned that you've got a pine 1x4 rain screen on the outside. Is there any concern that that could catch fire?
I had a little bit of concern as well. We looked into maybe some metal hat channel for the next projects. So, but yeah, that would be the only, we're thinking.
That's the only combustible material on the outside of the house, really. But I guess the point is, you've got a bug screen at the top and the bottom, and I think you told me you got a piece of metal, perforated metal that'll go here too.
Correct.
So you're making sure you're not getting any embers in that airspace to begin with.
If just heat alone makes that combust on the inside of that sealed assembly,
we got bigger problems.
We got bigger problems. We've already passed the point of being able to defend this house from fire.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then this is...
I was going to say the hard thing about fire is that there's so many different ways to go it in, like around your windows or any other corner that maybe you didn't think about, design for.
Yeah.
Even like the front porch, you have something combustible on the front porch, catches on your wall. So you have to think about all those things outside just the assembly itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then this is showing that header that we talked about inside, where you've got those LVLs on your top plate, which is unusual as kind of your band joist header.
Yes, we brought that up above the top plate, so out of the wall assembly below that.
And then, did you actually use trusses up in that attic space, or is it traditional framing?
Are parallel core trusses. They're 24-inch deep. That'll be filled entirely with blown-in cellulose.
So BFS probably provided those as well.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then it's not necessarily showing it here, but the whole idea is, look, this whole assembly is unvented. The only ventilation is going to happen on top of the roof deck to make sure that you're ventilating your metal roof space, but nothing in the roof itself is ventilated.
What we're going to do is we're going to put, this will be a membrane. We'll put a outdoor membrane here, and then we'll put like a 2x4 on top of this, and then this will be on top of that for the roof.
And that's what I've represented down here.
Yeah.
So those are 2x2s there, another layer of decking.
Ah, and then, I missed that. Okay, I understand now.
And so if you
got it. So you're actually ventilating between this space right here is where
There you go,
Right.
exactly.
So that creates
smart,
that
guys.
And then, so even though this can't be fire resilient, with a fire resilient peel and stick membrane and metal roof, kind of that first contact will be totally fire resilient.
Yep.
Then where by code we have to get air underneath that cathedral ceiling to keep the deck dry,
Yeah, that's smart.
because we still need to get the air in there, and makes it super
Sure.
vulnerable. At least we have a controlled environment.
That makes sense. And then this is where we saw, we got the taco truck behind me, and then this is where we saw the Intello membrane. You've got a great mock-up of that. And this membrane is going to be your vapor control layer as well as your airtight layer, right?
Correct. It's serving both of those purposes there.
And then of course you can put all your mechanicals on the inside, never have to go through this.
Yeah, you don't want to
the
penetrate
airtight
that.
Layers not penetrated by the subs on the job.
I also want to point out, well done, gentlemen, doing solid sheathing inside your garage space so that you're not relying on, let's say, sheetrock and spray foam for airtightness. You've got solid plywood, you've taped that to the foundation. Looks like you even used some mastic up here, Chuck. Is that what I'm seeing?
Right, that's a Viscon product, and so that goes on and then dries black. It goes on blue, dries black, and that's just an added product that we can use to seal that area.
Killer. I like
You'll
it.
never really see spray foam on most of our jobs.
And why is that, Andrew? Why the lack of spray foam? Is that because of the?
It's been sold to do a beat. It can do everything, but it doesn't necessarily do much of it well. It's not fire resilient at all. It's not airtight.
Yep.
It's hard to get it to be airtight. And that's something they've been talking about forever, but rarely do we see a spray foam house reach the 0.6 ACH 50s that we need for passive house. And it doesn't really define where the control layers we need for the air, for the vapor control, for the fire control, for the air control. Those are specific conditions, like in our wall mock-up, that we can control. That spray foam doesn't necessarily have those abilities to control. So
that makes sense. Guys, super impressive work. Really enjoyed coming out to see what you had going on here. What a cool project. Chuck, did you mention there was something else I should see while I'm here in Superior? Is that right?
We've got a number of things I'd like you to see.
All right, so guys, stay tuned. More from Superior, Colorado. But if you're interested in talking to Chuck, learning more about what they're doing here on these incredible houses, I'll put a link below to Jobert, did I pronounce that right?
Correct.
His building company's website, and all the people that were involved in this project. Super, super cool to see. That being said, guys, if you're not currently a subscriber, hit that subscribe button below. We've got new content every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on TikTok or Instagram, otherwise we'll see you next time on The Build Show.